as you were talking about, based on what's available to us, without making the process more complicated for our applicants, is really what I think makes this a very, very sweet sauce, and looking forward to being able to help the region planfully, plan with the information that we're able to collect about impacts. Makes a huge difference. So thank you for the thinking that's gone into this. I know it's going to take some more help to make this happen, and we're going to talk some more about that. But that, I think, is quite attractive. I'll let you go to the next slide. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Lindstrom, and then
Thanks. I was looking at the maximum score. You have some maximum scores of 15 and some maximum scores in the quality area of 20, I think. And I'm just wondering about the thought process of those maximum scores. Why 15 and 20 instead of 50 or 100? I see that in some of the criteria, the maximum score is like 2, meaning, man, you hit it out of the park, you get 2. If you did okay, you get 1.
Yeah.
If you forgot to fill it in, you get 0.
Yeah.
Like, why not make it like 10 or
consistent
something
across
like
the
that?
board. Sure. Yeah, so that's a great question. Our team had quite a bit of discussion around some of these, and it kind of falls into 2 categories. One is aligning with council priorities, and the other is around what makes it usable for us as a grants team. So I'm putting the development projects quality score back up on the screen, because this is probably where we see the most differentiation, where the 9 points being high for that because we around that first one around the city context, because that's one of the highest priority things that we are seeing there. And so that is one of those kind of values alignment. And part of it is we do try to make it add up to a somewhat round number that people like, because it makes people feel confident in their scores. So 9 rather than 10 for that reason. With the scores around the environmental pieces, there's enough, in our experience, there's enough differentiation there that we need to be able to have more bandwidth to give the level of exposure risk or the level of severity of contamination, more gradation. And then when it comes to, but then when it kind of all comes together and in terms of ranking projects and pulling funds from different funding sources, because we're pulling the funding for cleanup projects from one funding account, the TBRA account, and the funding for construction from a different account, the fact that the environmental cleanup points are 20, whereas the context is only 9, it won't impact project's ability to get those construction dollars, because we won't be considering that cleanup score in there. So that's a little explanation around some of the development ones. In the policy projects, another kind of piece in line with our goals is around the simplification, and we simply just don't want to make it that hard. If a city has a policy project that is going to help them meet the regional goals, we want to make it pretty straightforward to apply for these funds and make it clear how you earn points. Then with the net tax capacity per capita, which we talked about a little bit, for example, that and whether or not they already have a defined scope of work are the lowest in this category. And that's because as staff, when we're thinking about what makes a successful project, those are the least important. At some point, you have to have a clearly defined scope, but if you haven't chosen your consultant yet by the time you apply for us, we're not going to apply to us. We're not going to hold that against you. And similarly, like if we are wanting to prioritize cities that have that lower net tax capacity per capita, this gives us the ability to do that, but we also don't want to exclude the cities that have that higher net tax capacity per capita. Does that
Yeah,
help?
thanks. And if I can follow up,
Sure.
I assume with the last one, on net tax capacity, that's something that everyone's going to know.
Yes.
You're like,
Yep.
you get
We will
this,
publish. We
you're
will
gonna
publish
get a
that.
1.
Yep.
It's that, you're going to get a 2. It's this other thing, you're going to get a 3.
Exactly, council member. We use this, are testing this criteria this year with our policy grants. And so with our program materials published, the table of what points are assigned to which cities. Make that easy.
And going forward, ideally, we will have an interactive LCA tool where when you put in your project address, it lets you know what tier of net tax capacity you're in. It'll let you know your affordable housing need. Again, to reduce the amount of looking back at different documents that folks have to do through the application process.
Yes. Councilmember Wilk and then Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I like about this update, I did the deep dive into the novel like Councilmember Chambliss did, and I really like the idea that if you're coming for your third bite at the apple, maybe you go behind people who are on bite 1 or 2, because, you know, some developers just really get the hang of this and they're always successful. And having that opportunity for people who haven't gotten money before, I think is important for fairness. And additional information, if we could check in with metro cities, because they're doing their legislative priorities and whatnot right now, and making sure we get any comments from them as an organization. They always wait till the very, very end to give their comments when everything is baked. But you know, if we can see if that's going with their goals, because they're the entity that represents as many of the cities within our area as possible. They don't represent everybody, but that's the closest we have to an organization that talks to all of our people in terms of policy work.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that suggestion, and actually spoke with Metro Cities 2 or 3 weeks ago, and gave them a very similar presentation and walked them through all of the changes. And they were very supportive of the changes that we are looking at making, and will are staying in touch with them, and we'll loop them in before we present our 100% draft. But we showed them, I think it was at that point probably a 70 to 80% draft.
And one more thing, Madam Chair. The other wrinkle that we're going to have is now cities and counties are going to have all of that money from the sales tax to do their own projects. It'll be interesting to see if they're looking basically for a match to what they're doing to go farther, or if they're just going to stick with their for sure money and not necessarily apply for the maybe money.
Yeah.
You know, we won't know until after all of this is over, but it's something to sort of watch for.
Absolutely. Yep. That is definitely on our team's radar as well in terms of what's happening with that money.
I don't think there'll be too much.
Right.
Go ahead, Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. And to add to the check-in, organizations like MICA probably would be interested in this, because they're very interested in how we can increase deeply affordable housing. And then there may be some other key organizations as well. My question is, when I was doing some digging, I saw this 2025 LCA homeownership track eligibility link. Is that going to be updated with as it relates to the affordable homeownership programs?
Yeah. So the homeownership program for council members that are newer on this committee is this is its 4th year, I believe, in existence, so it's a pretty new program. And the council wisely, when they set it up, way before I got here, so I can take zero credit for it, established racial equity and geographic choice priorities within that program. And so the link that I believe Councilmember Chambliss is talking about is where online we publish that data, which is Census and Met Council data, to help establish the score for those priorities. We are looking at the community composition. We're looking at where the racial disparity in home ownership is even greater than it is in the region on average. We're looking at areas that are expensive to own homes, that already have a lot of single-family homes, but that aren't affordable, things like that. And so we publish that in a tool every year. We do update it every year, and plan to continue to use those to help guide some of the quality considerations for that homeownership money. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Lindstrom, I thought I saw your hand.
Yeah,
in
I
there.
sort of was halfway raising my hand there, but I was curious to know, so we're prioritizing cleanup in EJ areas. Is that new with this change, with these changes, or
Great,
have we
yeah.
already had that?
We,
I like it,
yeah.
by the way.
We do have it. We call it something different. So within the TBRA program now, we have a call out for what we were calling seeding economic development. Yep. Equitable economic development seed. And so that was really designed for projects that were early stage. They might not know what's going on the site yet in the future, but it was dirty. And so cleaning up the dirty dirt is a valuable goal. And so cities have appreciated that, and this is our way of, in this new format, making sure that those projects still have an entry point for us.
And expanding that priority to all
EJ areas, yeah.
Go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you. The other thing I like along the same vein is the energy saving activities that result in decarbonization and water efficiency. What I like about that especially is that it calls out cost burdened residents. So it kind of highlights that these should be long-term water savings, financial savings, energy savings for the residents, for the people that live there. So I'm glad we called that out.
Thank you.
That's actually one of the measures that we are hoping to be tracking, is looking at the difference in utility costs post rehab or any kind of energy saving work that's done on existing properties, so we can look at the impact for residents.
Great.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. First of all, thanks for this thoughtful overhaul and reiteration. My question is, with the tension around when folks had the feedback about geographic tension in terms of projects in concentrated places, not on transit lines or on transit lines, is that just to leave that nebulous?
It's a complicated issue, right? I think we engaged the consultants last year, Mary Kay Bailey and Ellen Waters, to help us explore some of that tension between that core city and the suburbs. And there is, I think, multiple things at play. One is that our program works well in areas that are doing development. Right, and so that just given the density, given the number of people that live here, that happens a lot in the core cities. And so we're trying to balance finding the best projects that align with council goals in those cities with encouraging and incentivizing deeply affordable housing development in the suburbs where there may not be transit at this point or planned. And so that is really, how we balance that is something that we do look for council's direction on. In the past, the council has guided this 60% to suburban communities, 40% to the Minneapolis and St. Paul, in the event that the program is oversubscribed and receiving more requests than we have funding, which is pretty much always the case. So if we want to make a change, now is a great time to do that, and we would welcome that discussion. From a staff's perspective, there's the tension for sure still exists, but the 60-40 has also worked pretty well. And so we were proposing to keep it the same, but would welcome discussion on changing it if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf, I'm sorry, councilperson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would point out that there are quite a few suburbs that have heavy transit coverage. So the 60-40 is not transit and not transit. Most of the suburban projects that get funded even today are in areas that have good transit coverage.
Councilmember Cameron's district.
That balance happens with the change in the scoring, where the number of outcomes, is balanced out, so that suburban communities have, even smaller communities have a greater opportunity to compete. So I think we're in this space right now where the question about that percentage allowed to the suburbs and the core cities is a question, but to my mind, we need to see the impact of what the scoring change actually brings before we consider any change to that. You're thinking about the fact that we're trying to cover all communities, but not disadvantage any. So I certainly look forward to seeing what that scoring change affects, and would not look for any change in the percentages allotted this time. Are there other questions? Go ahead.
This is more of a comment, but, and I think this has been said before when we've had these discussions, but I just want to reiterate it again, that, I think for some communities, like Lakeville, that there are, haven't seen themselves in this process. And so there's a component of, as we're going through these changes, of making sure that those communities, all communities, are aware of these changes, and that, to see themselves in this new process. And so making sure, because it doesn't really matter if we change the scoring criteria, if communities already feel like it's a foregone conclusion that they will not be awarded the funding, so why apply? And so that's where I think, it is very closely tied to the outreach we do with our partners in terms of communicating out these scoring changes and making sure that they also very clearly understand. I know that's a step in the process, but I think it particularly is important to communities that have not been a part of the LCA program for that reason.
Thank you for that, council member. We're definitely looking forward to moving into that stage. Our team right now is, we've got 2 open positions, and so we've been, to your point, we've been focusing on this plan update, and we'll get to outreach as soon as we have your go-ahead with the program design next month.
Thank you. Thanks for that observation. All right. So we're on the discussion slide. We're in that process.
Yes.
I'm glad to have heard comments already about what is considered very positive, what questions and concerns may yet exist. I would call on council members for any additional comments. Just noting that what you've received so far, I think, is an acknowledgement that this isn't simple. It's not A plus B equals C. There are a lot of different factors here. This is certainly a big equation. So I thank you for the thoughtfulness that has gone into the categories of outcomes and quality and the scoring, aspects, and for all of the openness that you've had to hearing council members' suggestions over the past and incorporating them to the very, very best of your ability, thoughtfully, and I think pretty completely. We will have opportunity to see what results as we move forward in the approval and the applications. And the 2-year process, I think, is extremely important as well, to have that ability to, on an annual basis, look at, assess, determine what changes may be needed. This first year, we're going to need a lot of just hand-holding through what these evaluations have looked like and how the scoring results have come about, so that we can see the projects that come forward, but also understand the impacts on the community, on the communities that we are serving. So I'll turn again to other council members for final questions or comments, feedback, because we do want to be certain that we are able to move forward and that we've put our best foot forward to help make any adjustments should they be needed.
Yeah, before the presentation and the question and answer period, I was wondering how we were going to prioritize our incentives for deeply affordable housing developments for jobs and all of that. But it sounds like the quality score is really going to get to that. You know, we don't have a rubric for how that quality scoring is going, so that's where some of my questions are. You know, I know that there are a lot of points to consider for that type of scoring, and it takes people who are very qualified and experienced to do that, but maybe having some deeper dives as we go along on you know, what that looks like.
Sure.
Maybe some examples might be useful.
We can absolutely do that.
That would be very, very helpful. And if, in fact, something can be done ahead of time, you know, because we know that you'll share with us observations as they occur in the process of reviewing applications. But even ahead of time, prior to the September approval process, if we can get some thoughts from you as to what this might look like in a rubric form, that would be very helpful. Thank you for the suggestion.
We can have a rubric prepared for September, I think. And we won't be able to have examples from past projects for the quality score, just given the information that we requested, but we can prioritize rubric for the quality score as much as we can.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Are there others?
I guess just a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair. So obviously I'm new here and I just love listening to my fellow council members. I think the first question is thought about any updates. I don't know what things were like before, but just want a quick shout out to Lisa Barajas and your team. Angela today meeting with me, Emily meeting with me this morning. Just thank you for the transparency, and thank you for just, you know, remembering me, the newbie, getting me as close as, you know, to understanding all this. So I love that. This is where you put focus on outcomes and less acronyms. There are a lot of acronyms there. So I appreciated that a lot. So I got a lot to learn. I'm not going to dispute that. I'm not going to fight that. But I just want to thank your team, each and every one of you, for helping me out and the hard work you're doing. So looking forward to what Madam Chair and Chair Rivas said, and all my council members. I would love to see how this impacts the community and how they react to this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for your comments. The thoughtful back and forth that you've shared with us over the months have been very, very helpful. I think the feedback that you got tonight, you have appreciated, and we appreciate that you'll take on the chore of putting that rubric together and in front of us, so that in September, when we're looking at this again, we'll feel confident as we possibly can. You know, this is a work in process, and we know that we are going to experience learning together as we go through this, even after approval and especially after approval. But thank you so very much for setting up this work to benefit our communities in the way that you have. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you again in September.
Thank you.
With that, I think we've done all of the business that we have before us. I'm going to check in, though, with you, Lisa, to see if there is anything that you want to share with us before we close.
I would just, thank you, Madam Chair, just remind folks that Michelle has sent a request for your availability for the upcoming committee meeting that will be September 2nd.
Which will be a Tuesday, the day after Labor Day.
So if you could respond to that, that helps us plan ahead for quorum.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for all of your work to get this committee meeting together for us, for all of the work that the CDC staff has done on our agendas, and to all of you for your participation. We are now adjourned.